Sir, do you solemnly swear that the testimony about to give to this court is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Me.
Good morning, sir. State your full name.
Michael George,
Where do you work?
the Massachusetts State Police.
How long have you worked there?
13 years.
And how are you currently assigned?
I am a trooper in the Collision Analysis and Reconstruction Section.
And how long, is that also known as CARS?
Yes.
How long have you been assigned to that unit?
It'll be 10 years in July.
Prior to joining the state police, were you working?
Yes.
And what kind of work were you doing?
I worked for the town of North Attleboro Police Department for 7 years, 1995 to 2002.
And prior to that, had you been in school?
Yes.
And where did you go to school?
I went to a vocational high school in Franklin, graduating with a certificate in automotive technology.
Okay. And just with regard to, since the time that you were at school, well, let me ask you this. Have you always been interested in cars?
Yes.
And are you somebody who worked on cars as a youngster?
Yes.
And your course of study at the vocational school was auto mechanics?
Yes.
Did you then later maintain or get certifications regarding auto mechanics?
Yes, I did.
And do you maintain those certifications at this time?
Yes, I am still, I am a certified ASE Master Automobile Technician.
Okay. And as a result of that, in your assignment, is there some intersection, the use of your knowledge and experience with auto mechanics in your current assignment?
Yes, in a collision investigation, we look at three things. We look at the environment, we look at the vehicle, and we look at the operator for contributing factors. And a lot of times, people will claim a defect in the vehicle, or there'll be a recall issue with the vehicle, and I will get involved, whether it's my own reconstruction or other reconstructionist cases, and assist them in inspecting the vehicle's mechanical conditions to see if something contributed to a crash.
Okay. Now, just with regard to this matter, at some point in time, you were asked to inspect a particular vehicle. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
And what kind of vehicle were you asked to inspect?
A 2012 Nissan Altima.
That's what you're on. I'm just going to show you these two photographs, ask you if you recognize them.
I do.
Okay, what do you recognize them to be?
Those are photographs I took of the 2012 Nissan Altima parked behind the State Police Barracks in Dartmouth in the secure pen.
Okay. Now, if I could just talk with these.
Object.
Mark this next exhibit.
Thank you.
May you see the picture?
Me.
I'm just placing 386 now on the overhead. Do you recognize that vehicle?
I do.
And what do you recognize as the vehicle?
That is the 2012 Nissan Altima color silver that I was asked to inspect.
And that plate number is what?
536 Mike X-ray 2.
And did that show the general condition of the car on the date you inspected it?
Yes, sir.
Make any observations of the side mirror of this vehicle?
Yes, there's the left door mirror or driver's side mirror was broken.
I'm just going to show you now 386B. See that on the overhead?
I do.
And what does this photograph depict?
That's looking at the right front of the passenger front of the 2012 Nissan Altima.
Now, the condition of this vehicle at the time, with regard to the rear passenger side wheel, was what?
It had the Saver spare, the small trunk spare mounted to the right rear.
Now, sir, were you asked to do something with regard to an examination or inspection of this vehicle?
I was.
And what were you asked to do?
I was asked to examine the vehicle's drivetrain to determine what wheels powered that vehicle. Was it front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive?
And are you familiar with the difference between a front-wheel drive and a rear-wheel drive vehicle?
Yes.
Okay, can you just describe how are they different?
A front-wheel drive vehicle, the front wheels, the engine and transmission applies the power to the front wheels. That's the only thing that will propel the vehicle. So the front wheels power and also steer, versus a rear-wheel drive vehicle where the rear wheels, the power will be applied to the rear wheels only, and that's what will propel the vehicle.
And how, just tell us, when you went to inspect that vehicle, how would you be able to determine that? From what area could you determine that?
Primarily from looking at the undercarriage, looking at each wheel, determining which wheels have axle shafts going to them, did any wheels have electric motors that may power the wheels, and also looking under the hood for the orientation of the engine.
Okay. Yeah, approach it, Michelle. So I'm just going to show you 4 photographs, ask you if you recognize what's depicted in these photographs.
Yes. 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 Yes.
And how do you recognize, well, first of all, what do you recognize these to be?
Those are photos that I took of the undercarriage of the Nissan Altima on the day of the inspection, October 7th, 2014.
Okay. And how were you able to take them? Where was the vehicle, or how did you get these photographs?
I jacked the vehicle up with a floor jack and got under the car with the camera and took the photographs with the flash.
Okay. Do they fairly accurately portray the condition of the undercarriage of the car?
They do.
Okay. Round it off, these is the next.
Objection.
They may be marked as the next exhibit.
A through D.
She's one. Is it 387A now on the overhead? What does this photo depict?
That is a photograph looking, if you stand by the driver's front of the vehicle and crouch down with the vehicle jacked up and took a picture of the right front wheel, I'm sorry, the driver's side front wheel. This is a photograph of the drive shaft, tie rod, and the suspension of that 2012 Nissan Altima.
Just directing your attention to this area over here, what is this?
That would be the tie rod.
Okay. And how about this area below it?
That's the axle shaft.
Okay. And just tell us about the axle shaft. This is on the front?
Yes, I'm sorry, that's the driver's side front wheel, and that axle shaft runs from the transaxle to the left front wheel. And on both ends of the axle, you see accordion boots that are CV joints that allow the axle to move in and out and also to flex when the front wheels are turned.
So we're dealing with the front wheel, one of the front wheels.
Yes, sir.
And this area here, is that one of those flexible things you've described?
Correct.
And what about over here?
Again, that's one of the constant velocity joint boots.
Okay. And how is that, how does that transmit, does that transmit power to the wheels?
Yes. If you look from looking at the photograph from the left side is where it connects to the transaxle. Power goes from the engine to the transaxle, and it's transmitted to that axle to the left front wheel.
Did you also look at the other wheel?
I did.
And that would be the passenger side wheel?
Yes, sir.
And I'm just going to show you 387B. You recognize this photograph from that area?
Yes, sir.
What does this show us?
Again, that's now crouching down in front of the passenger side front of the vehicle with the vehicle jacked up, taking a picture of the suspension, the axle, and in the back of the photograph, you can see the jack and the undercarriage of the vehicle.
And what is this right here?
That is the right front wheel's axle shaft. That's what connects from the transaxle to the right front wheel to apply power to that wheel.
So do both the front wheels have power to it from the engine?
Yes, sir.
And what about the backs?
The backs, jacking the vehicle up and looking under the vehicle. There was no drive shaft or a torque tube that ran from the transaxle to the rear of the vehicle that would indicate all-wheel drive. Looking at both rear wheels, there were no axles that would power the rear wheels. There were no electric motors. This wasn't a hybrid vehicle. The rear wheels were free-rolling and had no ability to apply power to that vehicle.
Just going to show you 387C. Does that show that area looking now back toward the rear wheel?
Yes, sir.
And 387D.
Yes,
Same thing?
yeah, that's a photograph now standing behind the vehicle, taking a picture. The pipes you see there are the exhaust pipes, but there's no drive shaft coming back. There's no axles going to the wheels.
So based on your observation, were you able to determine whether this was a front wheel or a rear wheel or an all-wheel drive vehicle?
This is a front-wheel drive vehicle.
Thank you. Any further questions?
Good morning, Mr. Jordan.
Good morning, sir.
Am I correct that there are lots and lots of vehicles that have front-wheel drive?
Yes.
Every Subaru in the world has front-wheel drive?
Most of the Subarus are all-wheel drive, but there are some,
Okay. But there are lots of cars with front-wheel drive,
yes.
like tens of millions of them on the road?
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Nothing further. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Next witness, Casey Armour, please.
Please face the clerk and raise your right hand.
Ma'am, do you solemnly swear that the testimony about to give to this court and this jury will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
Would you state your full name?
Casey Arma,
Could you spell your first name for us
Kasey
and your last name as well?
Arma,
Where do you live,
Revere.
and how long have you lived there?
Off and on since I was about 12.
Okay. And do you ever have occasion to frequent the city of Boston?
Yes, I lived in Revere in Boston for a few years, so, and worked in there as well, so I was out there frequently.
Now, taking you back to a time you were working in Boston, did you ever work for 617 Productions?
Correct, I did.
And just tell us about what kind of work is that?
I did like nightlife planning, like in events and all that, promotions, getting people out to the clubs out there and stuff like that.
Okay. Did you also, or are you familiar with the club Rumor?
Yes, I was. I worked there for a few years.
Okay, when you say you worked there, what kind of work were you doing?
I
at
did
Rumor?
the promoter work there, so nightlife planning and stuff, events.
I see. And what period of time did you do that for?
I'd say from between 08 and like 2011, in between those times.
So sometime after 2011, did you begin to work somewhere else?
Well, I've always worked with the company Best Buy. I've never left it. That was just a part-time job for extra cash, so.
I see. Now, did you ever have occasion just to frequent Rumor as well, just in your socializing?
Yes, we did. Once in a blue, birthdays, special events, stuff like that.
Okay. I'd like to direct your attention back to June of 2013. Do you recall the evening of the 14th, Friday, June 14th, into the early morning hours of June 15th?
I do.
Do you recall earlier in the evening going somewhere with some friends?
I do. I went to a J. Cole concert that night.
Okay, and when you say J. Cole, where was that concert?
It was at the Paradise Rock Club over in the Brighton, Alston, like borderline over there.
Okay, and when, do you recall approximately what time you were at the J. Cole concert?
From between like 9 to 11, 11:30-ish.
Okay, did you go with friends?
I went with one friend, Carmen.
Okay. Now, after that concert had ended, did you go somewhere else?
Yep, we went after to Club Rumor. That's where the after party was taking place for that show.
Okay. And when you say the after party, was that a scheduled event?
Not necessarily scheduled. Whenever there's artists in town, they typically go to Rumor after. So I had gotten a tip from J. Cole's manager, that's where they'd be. So I knew prior that they would be there.
Okay. And so, as a result of seeing the concert, did actually this performer, J. Cole, then go to Rumor?
Can you repeat that?
Sure. After the concert, were some of the folks at the J. Cole concert going to Rumor?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And did you go there?
Yes, I did.
And approximately what time did you get there?
I'd say arrived around midnight.
And do you know how long, what the hours of operation of Rumor Club is, nightclub is?
It's 10 to 2 a.m.
Okay. And so arriving around midnight, just tell us, what did you do after you arrived?
We got inside. There was actually like some Hennessy event that night, so they were giving out like free shots of Hennessy. We walked around, socialized with the girls. I ran into a whole bunch of friends. I said hello to J. Cole's manager real quick at their table, and then hung out most of the night on the dance floor with my girlfriends and stuff.
Okay. Now, at some point, well, let me ask you this. Had you ever seen an individual by the name of Hernandez at that club prior to this night?
Yes, I have.
And approximately how many occasions had you seen him?
I mean, that we've had, he's probably been in there more than I know, but maybe 5 to 6 times that I've actually like had an interaction.
Okay. And the individual I'm referring to is Aaron Hernandez. Do you see him in the courtroom?
Yes, I do.
Can you just point him out and describe what he's wearing, please?
He's wearing a blue striped tie and a gray jacket,
Your Honor,
white
the
shirt.
record can reflect the witness pointing to and identifying the defendant.
Right.
Now, on this night, now this would have been after midnight, so June 15, 2013, did you see the defendant at Rumor at some point in the early morning hours?
Yes, I did.
And just when you first saw him, just describe where he was.
Initial time I saw him, it was like on the main dance floor. He had walked by and like tapped my hip. So it was like the main dance floor, kind of near the DJ booth.
Okay. When you say he walked by and he tapped your hip, how did he tap your hip?
He just kind of walked by and tapped me to get my attention. I looked back and then kind of had eye contact and kept walking.
Okay. Did you see him after that?
I did. He was standing next to the DJ booth, leaning against the column for about most of the night.
Okay. When you say for about most of the night, did you see anybody with him?
Not at that time, no. He was by himself.
Okay. And did you have any further contact with him that night?
Yes, we did. I was standing maybe 5 feet from him with my girlfriends dancing, and all my girlfriends were like, he's staring you down, he's trying to get your attention, it looks like. So I turned around and he smiled, and I took like a step over, and I was like, how come you're all by yourself? Like, what are you doing? And he just, I really don't remember that response, but then he's like, what's your name? And I was like, I'm Casey, what's your name? He kind of paused for a moment and looked at me like, does she not know who I am? And I was like, do you have a name? He's like, my name's Rock. No.
Your Honor, move to strike the portion of the answer, like he does not know who I am.
Motion strikes left.
Did you ask him his name?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say?
He told me his name was Rock.
Okay. And did you have a further conversation with him at that time?
Yep. So he told me that I looked good, and he asked if I could dance with him. I told him I don't dance with guys in the club, that I just come to have a good time with my girlfriends. And then he like kind of smiled and was just like I don't know, smiling at me like, how are you going to say no? Just one dance. And I proceeded to dance with him. I agreed to dance.
Okay. And during this time, just what was his demeanor?
He was pretty pleasant. He shook my hand when I told him what my name was Casey, and he was pleasant, kind of charming, and we just danced. Nothing out of the ordinary.
How long did you dance for?
5 to 10 minutes.
Okay. And what happened after the 5-10 minutes?
All of a sudden, in the middle of the song, he just all of a sudden was like, "I'll be right back," kind of abruptly, like, just took off. And he said he'll be right back, and kind of went to the other direction, towards the other room.
Okay. And did you see him after that, after he had,
About 10 minutes maybe passed. I was back on the floor with my girlfriend's dancing, and he came back and, again, like, abruptly grabbed me out of the crowd by my arm.
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike is not responsive. The question was, did you see him again?
Motion strikes allowed.
did you see him?
I did see him again.
Okay, and just tell us about that. When did you next see him again? How long after?
It was
he
10
left?
minutes after. He came and grabbed
You
me.
answered the question.
Okay.
Okay.
And just, where did you see him next?
On the dance floor.
And did he come towards you?
He did.
And when he came towards you, did he do anything?
He grabbed me by my arm and pulled me out of the crowd.
Okay.
And told me to go with him.
Okay. And when he pulled you out of the crowd and told you to go with him, what was his demeanor at that time?
Very aggressive.
Okay. And where did he take you?
He told me that he wanted to go across the club, so he brought me to basically the entrance of the club.
Okay. And what happened when you, did you go to that area?
First I asked him, "Why are we going here? Is everything okay?" He's told me everything was okay, and then brought me over there. I did go with him.
Okay. Was that away from the dance floor?
Yes.
And what happened when you got over to that area?
He leaned against the wall right next to the archway of the entrance and told me to dance. And then I asked him again if everything was all right, and he's like, "Everything's fine, I'm good, let's have a good time, dance." And he kind of told me to, let me show me what you can do with that thing, referring to my back end. And
Objection, Your Honor.
Objection
Move to strike.
is sustained,
Just-
the motion strikes allowed.
Just with regard to his demeanor during this time, just how was he talking?
he was
to
just
you?
very aggressive.
Objection, Your Honor, move to strike is not responsive.
Motion strikes allowed.
What was his tone towards you?
He was just, I don't know, he seemed irritated and kind of just aggressive.
Objection, move to strike the characterization.
Motion to strike is
Well,
allowed.
just describe his behavior at that time.
It was just odd. It wasn't as it was before.
Objection, move to strike the characterization, Your Honor.
Motion strikes allowed, other than it was not as before.
Okay. So if you could just tell us how was his behavior different than before?
Objection, Your Honor.
Overall.
He just seemed a lot more agitated, like on edge.
Okay.
Not,
Move to strike.
Overall.
I'm sorry.
just he didn't seem relaxed anymore.
Okay.
Just so different.
And how long were you with him at this time?
Probably 5 minutes.
Okay, and just, did you dance again at that time?
We danced briefly, yeah, we did dance.
And then at some point, did that end?
It did.
And just tell us, how did that end?
I just didn't like the way he was acting
Well,
at that
they-
point.
Okay.
Strike that response.
Okay, was there something that happened?
He was just very aggressive, so
Okay.
I didn't want to dance no more.
And so what, at that point, did the two of you stop dancing?
At what point?
No, after that, did you stop dancing with him?
Yes.
Okay. And did you, at that point, where did you go?
I went back to the main dance floor where my girlfriends were.
Did you see where he went?
He walked off back towards the DJ booth.
Okay. And did you see him after that?
When we were exiting the club, he walked past me leaving, and then after on the corner by the W on Stewart Street.
Okay, so at some point, you see him exit the roomer?
Mm-hmm.
And the next occasion, do you see him a location outside?
Correct.
And just describe, where is that location?
He was standing directly on the corner of Warrenton and Stewart Street by at the corner of the W.
Okay. And did you see what he was doing there?
He was just kind of pacing back and forth on the corner.
Okay. May I approach? And I'm just going to show you this photograph and ask you to recognize what's depicted here.
Yep, that's him standing on the corner the night of June 14th.
Okay, is that how he appeared?
Yes.
Is that fair? And I could portray his position and
Yes,
location.
exactly.
I'd offer this shown as the next exhibit.
May I see that again, just to know? Thank you. No objection.
It may be marked as the next exhibit.
And I'm placing, it's now marked 388 on the overhead. Is this the photograph that I showed you?
What was
I'm just
that?
going to have a look to your left there.
Mm-hmm.
You recognize that photo?
Yes, I do.
Who is that depicted in the photograph?
Hernandez.
And you said you saw him at, in the area of Warrenton, and what's the intersecting street?
Stewart Street.
Okay. And you also referenced the W. What is the W?
It's a hotel.
And is that nearby here?
It's directly across from the rumor, yeah.
How long did you see him standing at the corner?
The whole time after the club had let out, he was standing out there, and I left, and he was still standing there when I left.
Did you see him talking to anyone as he was standing on the corner?
There was a lot of people out there. I did see him shake a few guys' hands and stuff like that, but for the most part, he's kind of to himself, hands in his pockets, just to himself.
Okay. And nothing further. Thank you, ma'am.
Your Honor, may we approach briefly?
Just the way before photographs, you've noticed before a photograph gets introduced as an exhibit, a witness is first asked to look at the photograph to see whether the witness recognizes what's in the photograph, and there are some prerequisites before it gets admitted into evidence. Similarly with a video, so instead of taking a recess at this time so the witness can look at the video, we're simply shutting off all the monitors except the You shut off mine too. Except, shut off mine
Yeah,
too.
we have to do that, please.
Except the witness's monitor, so the witness can look at the video, and depending on what the witness's responses are, that portion of video may or may not become an exhibit. So we can't put it on the monitors so that you can see it until the court rules on whether or not it is in fact going to come in as an exhibit. So everything's off except hers.
Just put it on, hers is on. Because you want this
The
on.
jury can't see yours.
No, it's not yours.
Ms. Armour, you described on direct examination visiting the Rumor nightclub on the late hours of June 14th into the early morning hours of June 15th. Is that right?
Correct.
And you described being around the Rumor nightclub for about 3 hours. Is that right?
No, about 2 hours.
Okay, about 2 hours. Are you aware that there was video surveillance equipment inside the Rumor nightclub, having
Yes.
worked there?
Yes. Well, I actually didn't know they had surveillance prior to, I found out after. I really never knew there was surveillance, no.
Are you aware that there is video surveillance that was taken on the night that I just described, June 14th into June 15th?
Yes.
And that video surveillance, have you ever seen it?
I have.
And when did you see that, ma'am?
It was about 3-4 months after when the detectives came to my house to speak with me.
So you've seen the video from the inside of the Rumor nightclub?
I did.
Okay. Well, I have a excerpt, and can I ask, is that when Trooper Benson and Mr. Origi came to your house in Revere?
The inside one, yeah, he was there, but I seen the video of the inside the second time they visited my house with Bill.
They came to your house twice with Bill.
Correct.
And who's Bill?
The gentleman sitting in front of me.
Oh. Well,
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the little commentary. Oh, like that's a big surprise.
So audit stricken, as is your comment.
so let me reconstruct then, Ms. Arma. A few months after, in particular on October 16th, 2013, a Trooper Benson and a Detective Origi came to your home in Revere, didn't they?
Correct.
And they stayed there for about over 2 hours, didn't they?
Yes.
And during the course of those 2 hours, they questioned you about this single night at Rumor, didn't they?
Yes.
And they showed you photographs, didn't they?
Yes.
Dozens of photographs they showed you, didn't they?
Yes.
And you sat there and you went through them.
Correct.
And then they showed you video surveillance film taken on Warrenton Street, didn't they?
Yes.
And you sat there and you went through them.
Correct.
And during the course of that, they would ask you to direct your attention to certain people that appeared on the screen, and they asked you questions about them, correct?
Correct.
And that session with those two police officers, during that session, you never saw the video from the inside of the Rumor nightclub in that session.
No, I did not.
So, in that session with the two police officers was audio recorded. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
They asked your permission if they could record that, that session with you.
They did.
So there was a second session, if I understand you correctly, is that right?
Yes.
And that was a session with Bill,
Yes.
and who else was there?
The two troopers you previously stated from the first visit.
The same trooper and same other fellow or
Yes.
detective? Do you know if that session was recorded?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
Do you remember them ever asking your permission to audio or video record that session?
I don't even remember them asking me the first time, really, but so.
Oh, I thought you answered my question that you did remember them asking.
I remembered it being recorded. I just don't remember them
So-
asking me.
How long did that session with Bill and the two police officers last?
It was much shorter than the first visit.
And during that session, what happened?
Bill just wanted to briefly speak with me about what I had told Trooper Benson prior, so.
And how long after your first meeting with the police was your meeting with Bill and the other two officers?
I honestly couldn't give you an answer. I don't remember how far apart they were.
Well, let's try. Let's try. In October 16th, you met with the two police officers the first time at your home in Revere, correct?
Yes.
So that's October. If you focus on October and you think about, the year 2013, was that session later that same year?
It wasn't in 2013.
So it was in 2014.
I would say yes.
And do you have any idea when in 2014 you met at your home in Revere, Massachusetts with Bill and the two police officers?
I really don't know. Maybe midway in the year. I'm really not sure. If I had to guess, I'd say halfway through the year, maybe.
And in between those two meetings, had you had any contact with the police officers or any police officers or Bill or anyone else about this case?
Trooper Benson had called me a few times just to keep me up to date, letting me know of when I'd be called down and stuff like that, or if they just a phone call here and there, nothing important.
And since that meeting that you described, where the video from inside the Rumor nightclub was played for you, have you had any further contact with Bill or any other prosecutors or the police about this case?
A gentleman, Scott Keller, came to my house that I guess worked with Aaron's side.
But I mean, in the prosecution side, have you had any
no.
further contact
No.
with them? Okay. What I'd like to do, I'm not sure, I'd like to show you an excerpt of video from the Rumor surveillance, and the jury is not going to see this, because I would like you to look at it, and I'm happy to show it on the laptop.
Why don't we just do that if it's easier?
It's just as easy. I mean, the clerk can just show counsel how to turn off your monitor.
It's off.
The little button.
Okay, if you look at your monitor, please.
Just check.
And Mr. Rankin will need his on to manipulate the system.
Just show it to her. Thank you, Garrett. We'll just use the laptop. Can I approach witnesses while you meet? Ms. Armour, did you view that video from the surveillance system of the Rumor nightclub?
Yes, I did.
And did you see yourself in that video?
I did.
And did you recognize the interior to be the Rumor nightclub?
Yes, I did.
And is that video, that depiction, a fair and accurate representation of what occurred on the night of June 14th into June 15th, 2013?
It is.
Your Honor, I would offer that segment of rumor video as the next exhibit, please.
No objection, Your Honor.
Maybe the next exhibit?
I think we'll have to just put it on a CD as we did in
The
the
CD
past.
may be marked when it's...
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, Ms. Armour, you said that you worked as a promoter. Is that right?
I did.
What exactly is that?
You pretty much advertise the club and get people to come out to the nightclub at nighttime. You get paid for every person that shows up there and paid for every like bottle you sell or table or something like that.
And you acted as a promoter, I believe you testified on direct examination, at the Rumor nightclub in the past. Is that correct?
Correct.
About how long did you do that?
I'm very bad with time working. I worked in so many clubs. I'd say like 2 years.
And when did that stop?
Like I said, maybe between 2010 and 2011.
Okay, so in June of 2013, you weren't at Rumor nightclub in your capacity as a promoter, correct?
No, I was not.
You were there as just like any other customer, correct?
Correct.
And you went there with your friend Carmen, correct?
Correct.
And I believe you testified that you'd been to Rumor as a patron or a customer before, correct?
Yes.
About how many times had you been to Rumor just simply as a customer, not as a promoter?
I don't know. As a customer, maybe 10 to 15 times over the 5 years.
And in some of those previous times, you had seen Aaron Hernandez there, correct?
Correct.
Now, Rumor is located on Warrenton Street, isn't that right?
Yes.
And you mentioned on direct examination that the club closes at 2 o'clock, is that right?
It does.
But based on your experience at Rumor, the club actually starts shutting down before 2 o'clock, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
The lights come on, and the music stops, and the lights come on around 1:45, isn't that right?
145, 150, yes.
And that's the signal for everyone to leave, is that
Yes,
right?
yes, it is.
Based on your experience at Rumor, can you estimate how many people are there on a
Between, like,
weekend night?
Usually like 400, 500.
And is there any reason why that wasn't the case on June 14th, 2013, the same type of crowd?
What, not as many people?
No, was that a
Oh.
fair estimate of from your
I think it was,
observation?
I would say.
I'm sorry, ma'am, just let me rephrase my question, I don't want to confuse you. From your observations on June 14th into June 15th, 2013, is that estimate of 400 to 500 people in the nightclub a fair estimate of the attendance that night?
I don't think there was as many people that night.
How many do you think were there?
300 maybe?
Okay. And when the lights go up, everybody leaves, correct? And they all leave through
That one.
the entrance, that one entrance, isn't that right?
Yes,
So there's a bit of a crowd and a bit of a crush to get out onto the street.
yes.
And then, once onto the street, people hang around, don't they?
They do.
That's kind of a scene, if you will, isn't it? It's part of the night to hang around when the club closes, isn't that right?
Yep, we call it the let out.
The let-out. And during the let-out, people congregate on Warrenton Street in front of Rumor, is that right?
They do.
And people spread up the street, and they congregate up on the corner of Stewart Street and Warrenton by the W Hotel, correct?
Yes,
And in your experience, that's a fairly regular occurrence, isn't that right?
yes,
And it's not just Rumor that's letting out at that time, it's other clubs as well, correct?
yes.
So all these people kind of come out at the same time, and then during the let-out, there's a period of hanging around, correct?
Yes.
And during that period of hanging around, people talk to each other, people intersect with one another, don't they?
Yes.
And again, that's a regular occurrence, right?
Yes.
Now, on Friday, June 14th, you testified you went to the J. Cole show at the Paradise, correct?
Yes.
And J. Cole is a rapper, right?
Yes.
And he's a pretty well-known rapper, isn't he?
Yes.
And you went to his show at the Paradise.
I did.
And did your friend Carmen go with you to the Paradise as well?
Yes, we went together.
About how long did that show last, the rap show at the Paradise?
It was about 2 hours long.
And were you there for the entire show?
I was.
And did you have anything to drink at the Paradise?
I did not have one at Paradise.
And after the Paradise, there was going to be an after party for the J. Cole group, is that right?
Yes.
Including J. Cole himself, right?
Yes.
And you know his manager.
Yes.
And so you, I think, as you testified on direct, were tipped off that there was going to be an after party at Rumor, correct?
Correct.
So you and Carmen headed to Rumor.
Yes.
And you got there around midnight.
Yes, we did.
And did you, when you described a little bit on direct examination what you did at Rumor. Rumor has a number of bars, correct?
They do.
And it was Hennessy night, correct?
Yes.
And Hennessy was giving out free shots? Mm-hmm. Did you have any of those free shots?
I took one.
Did you get anything from the bar?
I did get one drink from the bar.
One drink.
One drink.
So a total of 2 drinks?
A drink and a half, I'd say, but yes.
Okay. Now, towards the end of the night, you encountered Aaron. Is that right?
Correct.
And Aaron had come to Rumor late, hadn't he? He had come there around 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
And when you saw Aaron, he was standing by himself, wasn't he?
Yes.
And based on your past observations of Aaron, he stood alone every time you saw him at Rumor, didn't he?
For the most part, I've only seen him with one person one time.
And he's kind of a wallflower at Rumor, isn't he?
Yes.
Oral.
I'm sorry, ma'am, my question was, he's kind of a wallflower at Rumor, isn't he?
Yes.
And based on your observation, however, people come up to Aaron, don't they?
Yes.
And they were doing it that night, weren't they?
Yes.
The girls were coming up to him and trying to take his picture, weren't they?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
And based on your observations on that night of June 14th into June 15th, Aaron pretty much stayed in the same spot the whole night, didn't he?
He did.
And that was over by the DJ booth, right?
Yes.
Now, at some point, you actually got to engage or talk to Aaron, correct?
Yes.
And I believe you testified that you walked by him and on your way somewhere, you remember where you were going?
I was coming back from the restroom, going back to the dance floor.
And you said he tapped you on your hip and in order to get your attention, is that right?
Correct.
But you didn't really respond to that at that time, did you?
No.
And you ignored it because that's what you typically do, right?
Yes.
And after that, you went back to your friends and met up with them, didn't you?
Yes.
And there was some discussion among the friends
Yes.
about you and about Aaron.
Yes.
And your friends kind of challenged you to go up to Aaron, didn't they?
For the most part, yeah.
It was sort of a dare. It's like, go up to him. Is that right?
Pretty much.
And for you, when you decided to do that, approaching Aaron and getting him to dance, that was kind of an ego thing for you, wasn't it?
Well, I didn't.
No, if you could just answer my question.
Yes.
Okay. And So you did that,
I did.
and you walked up to Aaron. You were the first one to approach him, correct?
Pretty much turned around. He was like right behind me, but yes.
And then you danced with Aaron, correct?
Yes.
And how many times did you dance with him? I know you described there was a break in the time that you were interacting. During that first time that you were talking to him, did you dance?
We did dance.
And then there was a break.
Mm-hmm.
And then you came back and you moved to another location.
Correct.
And did you dance again?
Yes.
At this point, Your Honor, I would like to show the exhibit in evidence,
You may.
the video from Rumor. Mr. Rankin, if you could just stop it right here, please. Ms. Armour, for the benefit of the ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'd just like you to identify in the video you and Aaron Hernandez. Just simply point them out on your screen.
Yeah. Right here.
You're pointing to the two individuals against the wall under the chandelier, is that right?
Yes.
And that would be Mr. Hernandez in back of you, is that correct?
Correct.
And that's you in the dark hair where the cursor is right now, underneath the chandelier as we view it, is that right, Ms. Armour?
Correct.
Thank you. Please play it, Mr. Rankin. Thank you, Mr. Wright. Ms. Arma, the scene depicted on Exhibit 389, did that occur in the first encounter you had with Aaron, or did that occur in the second encounter that you had with Aaron?
The second.
And when you met with Bill and the two police officers, is that the video they showed you?
It is.
When you danced with Aaron in the first time, did you dance in a similar fashion to what was depicted on Exhibit 389?
Pretty much, yeah.
Any differences between the dancing we saw in Exhibit 389 and the dancing that occurred in the first part?
Well, there was more just straight dancing the first time instead of me always talking to him and turning around and talking. So
What kind of dance is that called?
I don't know the name to it.
Now, when you finished your encounter with Mr. Hernandez, he went his way and you went your way. You went back to your friends, correct?
Correct.
And the next time you saw him was, well, let me ask you about that break. You said he left you for about 10 minutes, is that right?
Yes.
And he went off.
Yes.
But you don't know where he went.
No.
And you don't know who, if anyone, he saw. You don't know if he went to the bathroom.
Possibly. I don't know.
You don't know if he went to the bar. Do you remember when he came back? Do you remember if he had a drink in his hand?
I don't.
And that's because you didn't watch him, did you,
No.
when he went away? But you didn't see anything out of the ordinary, did you?
Not at that time, no.
And he came back and rejoined you, and you two danced as was depicted on Exhibit 389.
Correct.
Now, when you were dancing with him, there were a lot of people watching you, weren't there?
Yes.
And you know a lot of those people, don't you?
A lot of the people who work there, the staff has changed, obviously, since I left, but I did know a few people, yes.
So this was right out in the open and part of the environment at the club that night, right? You
Yes.
two? Did you see any other New England Patriots players at the club that night?
I did not.
Now, when you went out on the street, the club closed, and I guess we're talking about the let out now, right?
Correct.
And you and the rest of the patrons headed out the door, about 300 people,
Yes.
out one door, correct?
They stagger out. It's kind of hard to get the people out the club, but yes,
And it's just a very busy scene out there, isn't it?
it is.
And when you saw Mr. Hernandez, you saw him on the corner of Stewart Street and Warrenton Street on the W Hotel side, correct?
Correct.
And he was standing with some people, wasn't he?
Yes.
He was standing with some men.
Yes.
And he was responding to people who came up to him on the street corner. Is that right?
Yes.
And people were kind of flocking to him, weren't they, to take his picture and see him?
I don't recall anyone trying to take his picture at that point. I did see people approaching him, though, and shaking his hand.
When he was inside the club, people did the same thing, right? People would come up to him and shake his hand.
Yes.
And you saw Aaron, when you were in the club and you saw Aaron talking to other people in the club, didn't you?
I see him speak with the DJ.
So you saw him speak with DJ Hectic, correct?
Correct.
You saw him speak with Jeff London, correct? The VIP host.
Yes.
You saw him talk to Riz, another promoter.
I believe I saw him speak with him.
Well, didn't you tell the police in
it's
2013,
he's
October
been-
16th,
You have
that
to-
you saw him talk to Riz?
Yes.
Okay. And you saw him interact with a couple of the security guards, pat them on the back, didn't you?
Yes.
And now out on the street, Aaron was talking to other people out there, correct?
Yes.
And inside, people were coming up to him and trying to take his picture, weren't they?
Inside?
Yes.
Yes.
And people were also coming up and trying to take a picture of J. Cole, weren't they?
I don't know about that. Didn't witness that.
And when you went outside, you saw Aaron on the street corner. Did he speak to you at all?
He stared at me, did not speak with me.
Didn't he whistle at you?
When I was walking by, he tried to get my attention.
By whistling at you?
Some type of sound.
Didn't you tell the police in October of 2013?
Yes, I
That when
did.
you appeared on the street and Aaron saw you, he whistled at you?
Yes, when I was leaving, yes.
Okay. But you never spoke to Aaron outside?
No, he did not.
And you stated he was still there when you left, is that right?
Yes.
Well, when you left, wasn't he surrounded by people, including girls, who were trying to take his picture?
I did not say that. There was
Didn't you
definitely-
tell Detective Origi and Trooper Benson in October of 16, when I left, he was surrounded by people, including girls, taking his picture?
If I said that, I don't recall at this point. I remember a group. I remember a ton of men around him, a ton of people.
And then you left with Carmen, correct?
Yes.
And Carmen drove home?
No, I drove home.
And on the way home, your encounter with Aaron was the topic of the night, wasn't it?
Yes.
And you talked with Carmen about it?
Yes.
And you're saying you were driving, not Carmen?
Yes, I drove.
Now, that night at Rumor, you stated that this all happened because Aaron tapped you on the shoulder. Not all happened, excuse me, let me rephrase that. That this initiated, your contact with Aaron initiated with a tap on the hip as you went by. Is that right?
Yes.
And getting tapped on the hip at the Rumor nightclub in the midst of all those people, that's not an unusual occurrence, is it?
No.
In fact, people grab you all night at Rumor, don't they?
To get my attention, yes.
And after you had your encounter with Aaron, within the next 20 minutes or so, the club closed. Is that right?
Yes.
And you were walking around, and tons of guys were grabbing you, weren't they?
Yes.
And that's because that's a time when people get together. It's the time to grab your girl and go. Isn't that right?
I was nobody's girl to grab, but yes.
But that's what you told the police, didn't you? You said that's the time to grab your girl and go.
That's the time men try to take girls home with them, correct? Yes, that's what I meant by that.
Right. And in fact, you believe there were probably 50 guys that grabbed you that night inside Rumor,
I was
don't
probably
you?
exaggerating, but a lot of men did approach me.
So that was an exaggeration?
Yes.
Nothing further. I'm sorry, Your Honor, let me ask one more question.
Me.
You mentioned a gentleman named Scott Keller. Do you remember that?
Correct.
And Scott met with you on behalf of the defendant, didn't he?
He did?
Mr. Hernandez.
Yes.
And he asked you questions about this same evening, correct?
He did.
Do you remember telling Mr. Keller that you were drinking at the Paradise Club?
I probably told him I had maybe a drink.
Okay. No further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
And you didn't have any trouble talking to Scott Keller, did you?
No, I didn't.
Okay. So nobody's told you not to talk to anybody in the case. If someone wanted to talk to you, it was your decision to make.
Correct, Howard.
Okay. So when Mr. Fee asked you about, initially you met with Detective Arrighi and Trooper Benson, they had an interview, and obviously they were asking you questions about what happened.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
And you made a statement, and that was recorded, and there was nothing struck you as unusual about the manner of their questioning or how they interviewed you? Is that true?
Not at all.
Okay. And so later on, I actually had an occasion to meet with you, is that true?
Yes.
And do you recall that being in preparation of a trial date that was scheduled in the fall of 2014?
Come one more time?
Yes, do you recall that my meeting with you is because there had been an assigned trial date in October?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, we had a conversation, I asked you some questions just similar to what Mr. Feer has asked you today, is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Did anybody tell you at that time to change any of your testimony?
I object to the form of the question, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
Okay. Did I or Trooper Benson or Arrighi try and suggest anything to you that was...
Objection leading.
Objection sustained.
Okay. Well, why don't you just describe that interview, how the kinds of questions we asked you?
It was pretty much in line with the first interview. It was just follow-ups of what I told the cops the first time.
Okay. And did you have an understanding just about your obligation to tell us truthful answers to any questions?
I did understand that.
Okay. Now, with regard to this video that has been shown, were there certain things that the defendant had said to you during the course of the video that's now been showed to you?
I object to the form of the question, Your Honor.
Objection sustained.
Okay. What, if anything, did the defendant say during the course of that playing of the video?
We said a lot.
Objection to the form of the question.
He said a lot of things. He was trying to tell me how to dance. He suggested leaving to go to the W. He told me I should be grateful that he was showing me attention because I was, I guess, complaining too much about not wanting to dance the way he wanted to dance.
Okay, well, when you say you were complaining about dancing the way he wanted you to dance, what did you say to him?
He was trying to like push my back or like to bend me over, and I turned around like I'm not going to do that. Just like I'm not going to bend over like that.
And what happened when you told him that?
He just kind of was like, just dance, have a good time, whatever. Just dance, have a good time.
And during the course of that video that was being played, just you were asked a question about there was nothing unusual about his behavior earlier in the night.
Objection, mischaracterizing question.
I'm sorry. You distinguished between there was nothing unusual when Mr. Fee asked you about something, your first dance with him in the dance floor, is that right?
That's true.
Objection to the form of the question, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Did something change in between that earlier time and then what we just saw in the video?
Yes.
Okay.
His whole demeanor, he's just very different, very on edge, aggressive, and kind of arrogant.
And during that time, I think Mr. Fee had asked you about, you were dancing, you were out in the open. Were you out in the open on the video there?
I'd say yes.
Okay, so that location over by the door, it's somewhat off of the main body.
Well, again, I'm going to ask you not to ask leading questions.
Just describe where that area is in relation to the main dance floor.
It's at the entrance of the club. That's not where people typically would dance.
Okay. And when Mr. Fee asked you about, well, he was talking to, you saw him talk to the DJ and Riz, was that before or after the video that we've just seen?
Before.
Okay. And he also asked you about, not unusual, seeing people standing on the corner or standing outside milling about, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Had you ever seen the defendant standing on the corner like you did that night?
I have not.
Okay. Thank you. I have nothing else from you.
Ms. Armour, you said that you believe that that evening, in response to Mr. McCauley's questions, that evening the defendant acted arrogant towards you?
Yes.
And you don't like that?
No,
And you don't like him?
I wouldn't say that.
Well-
I have no opinion, just, I mean, after that night, no, I didn't like his behavior, yeah.
Okay,
Prior
so
to that.
As you
no.
sit here today, that's the same way you feel? You don't like him,
Yes,
do you?
I don't like his
Right.
his
Thank you.
arrogance.
Thank you. No further questions.
You may step down. Sure. Take the lunch recess at this time. Please keep your minds suspended. Don't discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else.
Photo arrives, and jury, please.